Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Lantern Film Room. I'm Brian Nelson.
I'm Andy Anders.
And today we have footage from Ohio State's 73-14 win over Maryland. Should be a lot of fun to take a look at. Andy, why don't we jump right into talking about some of the topics we're going to cover today?
Right, today we're going to be looking at Ohio State's downfield passing game. Maryland actually came out pretty conservative on defense. A lot of cover three, safe packages, secondary-wise, to try and prevent downfield passes and big plays from the Ohio State offense. Weren't all that successful. Ohio State was able to stretch their defense vertically and really open up the downfield game, as we'll take a look at. And then some of Ohio State's special teams, actually. Ohio State's so dominant in this game, wanted to take a brief look at some of the things they did on special teams, another facet that's, of course, important to football.
Absolutely.
Right, to set up things, not only things for the Maryland game, but things for the future. We'll talk about future implications of some of the things Ohio State did on special teams coming up.
Absolutely, and I like that we're highlighting maybe the passing game and the special teams, because recently for the film we've been looking so much at like how Ohio State's been establishing the running game, or how Chase Young's been so effective on defense. So I'm happy that we're going to take a different look at things. So let's jump right into it. Andy, what's the first play we're going to take a look at here?
Right, this is going to be a 23-yard completion to Jeremy Ruckert. Ohio State, on this play, you're going to see Maryland drop into a cover three. Mentioned that earlier, but for those of you who don't know what a cover three is, you're going to have this corner here is going to drop into a deep outside zone. This safety here is going to drop deep middle. This corner over here is going to drop deep outside. So you have three players dropping deep. That's why it's cover three. And they don't let anything behind them, right? It's meant to prevent the deep ball. You're going to have four other Maryland defenders. Yes, four other Maryland defenders dropping into hook zones underneath, right? And it's a matchup zone. So these two here, he's going to come down, and I believe he drops outside for a hook zone.
He does, yes.
But it's a matchup zone, right? So anyone that enters your zone becomes your man, essentially, until they pass into someone else's zone. So when this guy comes down, he's going to take the slot receiver here for Ohio State. Now what Ohio State does to open up this play, before we talk about the routes, wanted to point out a great blitz pickup from the offensive line here. Even though Maryland only brought four, they sent an edge rusher, which was not what they were showing initially. Just essentially great communication playing between Thayer Munford and Jonah Jackson here on the offensive line. Jonah picks up the defensive lineman here, and then Thayer Munford's able to get the blitzer off the edge. Field has all day to throw on this play, and it's a little bit of a slower developing route, so that's good. Ohio State hasn't used their tight ends much this year. This ball's going to go to Jeremy Ruckert. All Ohio State does is try to stretch Maryland's defense vertically, right, and open up space in between this first level of the zone and this second level where the three players are dropping into cover three. Ruckert runs his route, a divide route, which is essentially a flattened post route. So instead of running what would be a normal post, he's going to come more down the field with it, right in between where those two zones are. Because of the vertical stretch, you have a vertical route here of the defense, and then you get some underneath baiting right here from Luke Farrell. That zone is going to open up for Ruckert to run in between, and then a well-delivered ball from Fields.
Look here, we see the block. Fields does have all time to throw, and he's wide open. Even though it's not a huge completion, that's a play that can really build momentum and move a drive forward.
Well, yeah, 23 yards is big.
Well, it is big, but it's not like. But you talked about how like zone kind of like prevents some of the bigger plays,
right,
like really downfield. That's the whole design. And if Ohio State's able to accomplish these plays against, say, Penn State in 2 weeks, that's pretty big, wouldn't you say?
Right. And again, we've talked about in the past. A few weeks ago, we discussed just how great Ryan Day and Mike Yursich have done at passing game coordination and route concepts, routes complementing each other to open up other things. I mean, scheme works against any opponent, right? No matter what the opponent's talent level is, having a good scheme will get you far. And so far, really I personally haven't had many schematical criticisms of the coaching staff. Not that they take my opinion into account anyway, but
listen, you know what? With the hot piping analysis we're dropping here, maybe they should.
Hot piping analysis. I like how you phrase that.
It's such a fun analogy.
Well,
all right, let's move into some more hot piping analysis with this second play. Another passing play. Not now we're heading into wide receiver territory. What are we looking at here?
Right. This is later on the same drive, actually. We're going to get a 33-yard completion to KJ Hill. And Maryland, it's cover 3 again, but they sell it even more. They only rush 3 and drop 8. Last time they rushed 4 and dropped 7. So you're going to get an extra man playing the underneath zone here, and then again 3 players dropping deep. And it's pretty much the same play Ohio State just ran. It's a little different. You have a slightly different formation here. Wilson split out rather than having the extra tight end in with Farrell like we had last time. But you're going to get the same vertical stretch. All that's going to happen is on a cover 3, one of the holes in the zone, like we talked about, finding the hole in the zone, is going to be up these seams. Right here, the seams of the field. When a safety is dropping middle and you have someone dropping to the outside, and I believe it's on this play. It's either this corner or the safety on this play. And then you have someone else dropping outside. When the 3 zones are here, here, and here, you sometimes get holes up the seam of the field. It's harder for guys to run down. The timing on this throw is what I want to highlight more than anything else, though. Fields throws this ball exactly as KJ Hill is passing that first level of zones to, again, split the first and second level. Right? And so it's going to fit into this perfect window of opportunity for Ohio State. And you can just tell how well this was repped in practice, the preparation, to have the timing down exactly on this throw.
All right, let's take a look, see how it plays out. Getting set. All right. And again, it's not that it's going to be a major play that can just turn the tides of a game. But if you can consistently get receptions like that, then you're going to beat a defense like Penn State.
Well, yeah, I think 30 yards could turn the tide of a game.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to be conservative,
right?
because against Maryland, it's not that difficult to pull off plays like this. But let's kind of shift focus and talk about Penn State's defense. Mm-hmm. How likely is it that Ohio State can roll out looks like this and succeed against Penn State?
Honestly, I think the downfield passing game is the first thing they might have success at against Penn State. Penn State does a good job getting to the quarterback. The problem is the secondary might be the weakest portion of their defense. And so when you don't have the athletes that can match up with Ohio State on the edges, you could see Justin Fields get a couple big throws to open the game. And then, like we've said in the past in previous film rooms, you establish one thing, it opens up everything else. Mm-hmm. Downfield passing game, now they have to commit more dropping deep. Now you can run more. Now you can complete more underneath. It's a whole mix of things. So really this portion of Ohio State's game could be essential against Penn State, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Real quick, I also wanted to point out that KJ Hill's speed helped make a lot of difference on this play too, just because you saw it was a corner dropping from the outside into this outside zone here, and he's not going to be able to catch up to KJ and get that.
Well, absolutely. The importance and the impact that KJ Hill has on this team cannot be understated.
The overall speed of the edge playmakers in general, mm-hmm. KJ, Garrett, Chris Olave, Benjamin Victor, Austin Mack, everyone, mm-hmm. Top to bottom in this receiving core is so athletic and so fast, it's able to stretch defenses, just gives so much more space because you have to respect that speed vertically. We talk about stretching the field vertically all the time. When you have these receivers on the edge that can stretch it that much, it's giving Fields an even bigger window to throw the ball into.
And absolutely. And then that goes concurrent with Ohio State trying to establish the run game. Because if you have to respect the receivers in the passing game so much, that just opens up the hole for Dobbins or T to get a hole and just go off.
Exactly.
But let's kind of switch focus to our last passing play we're going to take a look at and kind of highlight Garrett Wilson with this nice passing play because he's been a freshman that's really been impressing me with the improvements he's shown, almost like how Chris Olave was last season, just in terms of the gradual impact and improvement we're seeing from him.
Right. So on this play, you're going to see again cover 3 from Maryland. You're going to get a match. You're going to have someone dropping into a matchup zone here with Wilson, right? He's going to have a one-on-one matchup into the end, and he's going to run a sail route, which is essentially a deep out route. He's going to run about 15 yards down the field and cut out. His route running ability stood out to me on this play. For a freshman to run as crisp a route as he does on this play, you're going to see a quick 3-arm pump from him and then hit the outsides. And what that does is it's going to confuse the defender, right? It's like, okay, where's he going? Whenever he drops to make that cut, if you can sell it with your head and with your body before you turn outside, it'll give you that split second of extra separation. And it does Garrett here on this play that he can turn upfield rather than just getting tackled immediately, pick up even more yardage. You're going to have a clearing route from Jamison Williams down here on the sideline. He's going to run a go and take this defender with him in the outside zone, probably pull the safety too. Just everything deep to open up space for Garrett in between the zones, as we've talked about. And then even a little more, the tight end here is going to run into the flats and occupy any other defenders that are underneath.
All right.
And you see the quick pump.
Yeah, I do.
Turn outside, make the catch, and he's got room to run upfield.
Okay. So, talking about all these plays and how effective Ohio State can be through the passing game, how do you stop Ohio State's passing game?
I mean, it's hard, right? When you have crisp timing, when you have the speed that they do on the edges, and when you have the design, really, pressure beats coverage. That's the old saying in football. The number one way you're going to be able to slow this passing game down is getting to Fields, which is hard in and of itself because Ohio State has protected him well and he's as athletic as he is. But you need to design different blitz looks, maybe confuse coverages. You know, sometimes there are defensive coordinators who can do a better job selling one coverage, make it harder for Fields to recognize the coverage, perhaps, or Ohio State's coordinators, right? Force a couple ill-advised throws, a couple throwaways. I don't think anyone's going to be able to fully stop this passing game when you have all the weapons you have, the design you have, the quarterback you have. But potentially slow it down, force a few errors, whether through your pressure or through a mixed-up scheme, kind of a disguised, maybe you show man and then you get into zone really quick, or you make it look like it's going to be cover 2 and all of a sudden it's cover 3. Just mixing the looks and breaking your own tendencies can help slow an offense down when it's harder for it to read what the defense is doing.
Especially when you look further into the stats and how Justin Fields, not only does he complete a lot of passes, but he still has one turnover on the entire season, 1 interception. That impact cannot be understated, really, especially when you look at how well the offensive line's been protecting him, aside from maybe the Wisconsin game.
Right. It was just the first half of the Wisconsin game for the most part. They turned it around, and there were parts of that game where Wisconsin was sending big blitzes, big complex blitzes, and pass protection was able to pick it up later. I think the overall gelling of the offensive line. It'll be interesting to see against Penn State because Penn State runs a lot of that odd front, weird blitzes, things that Ohio State has struggled with in the past. But that'll be, obviously that's the showdown we're preparing for, even though Rutgers is this week.
I mean, we watch this week's episode of the Best Damn Podland for our analysis on Rutgers.
Right.
It's very brief.
Yeah, very brief analysis on Rutgers.
Yes.
Ohio State, they don't have too much of an issue there.
Okay, but let's shift focus to special teams and talk about these. Now, I almost expected you to include special teams when you're getting plays ready for this, just because of how impactful it really has been the entire season. When you look at going back to against Indiana when Chris Olave had that blocked punt, and just how that's those are momentum changers. But still, I just wanted to open it up to the table. Why did you include these plays specifically?
Well, I think this is the second special teams play we're going to look at. The Olave onside, I'll talk when we get there about that sets up a lot of things for Ohio State in the future in its special teams. But it shows the overall discipline and the depth of a team when you can effectively shut down teams in coverage, right? Special teams is usually guys that are second teamers, guys that, Ohio State is known for throwing a Chris Olave or a Terry McLaurin in the past, or somebody fast into a special teams role like Gunner or your main punt block guy. But a lot of times it's backups filling these roles, and it shows the depth of the talent of Ohio State's team. And special teams is huge, right? It's field position. You're going to impact where you're starting with the ball and where the other team is starting with the ball based on how well your special teams performs. And Ohio State, we're going to look at a couple kickoff plays and a punt block play here, but also having Drew Chrisman has been huge, the ability to pin teams deep and get the ball back on offense in a short field. Just overall, special teams has a huge impact on the game, so it's important almost as important as offense or defense to break down schematically.
All right, well, let's get right into it then. Well said. So this is the second kickoff that Ohio State had to Maryland for Maryland's second drive.
Right. Just basics here. Kickoff coverage for Ohio State, kind of wanted to go through it. So Ohio State always is corners a team when they kick the ball off. Sort of this no man's land. The idea is to pin it. It used to be, I'm sorry, when this scheme was first introduced by Urban Meyer, the idea was to kick it into a garbage can at the 1 yard line close to this sideline over here. And that was before the fair catch rule, right, where you could fair catch it and get the ball to the 25. Now Ohio State tends to kick it a little shorter because they're trying to bait a return. They're trying to get that guy to take the risk to think, okay, I can get past the 25. And then you pin them, that extra 5 yards of field position for your defense makes a difference. As you'll see on this play, this is Ohio State's going to pin them at about the 19 or 20 yard line. But the scheme, in essence, it takes away a third of the field that the kickoff team needs to cover, right? Because you're cornering this team over here. So everyone on kickoff gets a lane. You need to stay in your lane when you're running down the field at first, because if he doesn't stay in his lane here, he cuts inside too quick to go after the ball. That's going to give the returner space to fill in where he used to be. So that's the essence of kickoff coverage, is everyone has a lane, they stay in it, and then when the ball, once you get to a certain point on the field, you collapse in on the ball. You take away any potential cutbacks for the returner. Everyone is responsible for a place he could go. These three guys here usually loop around and play almost kind of a safety role. If it gets through the first line of defense, some of these guys here are there to ensure that it doesn't break off for a huge return after it maybe was a good return.
All right, let's play it out.
So now if we pause it out,
Well, you can go back.
we can. Just go back really quick here.
Yep, right.
Now,
Okay.
as you're coming down the field, you see the responsibilities, right? Everyone's got their lane, and this is the point when they started to converge on the ball. See how this guy's all the way out here? He started on the sideline, and he's staying close to the sideline so that the returner can't get outside of him. He has contain on this play, right? Then, once you get to about the 30, that's when you break off and you approach at an angle, depending on where you are, to basically surround the returner. These couple guys in the middle are going to be running almost straight at his numbers. He's going to have the outside shoulder of the returner. He's going to have in between the number and the shoulder lanes. Lanes prevent big returns. And then you're going to see a gang tackle. And again, like we talked about the safety rules, these two are back here. That's Jocelyn Winter there. I don't recognize the second player. But they're going to play the safety role to make sure. And even when one guy misses, other guys are there to be because of the lanes, right?
And not that the field positioning was super impactful for stopping this particular Maryland drive, because I believe they went 3 and out, but it's still very impactful in general just to limit the amount of
Well, yeah, but
field position.
even Maryland's offense went 3 and out. Now it's a shorter field for Ohio State's offense, right?
Exactly.
Field position has a long-term impact on a game, basically until the next score occurs.
Yeah.
Field position matters.
Thank you for building off of my point. I set you up there very nicely.
Good job. So yeah, that's why kickoff coverage is important. That's why punt coverage is important. All that.
All right, so here's the play that everyone was talking about after this game, the onside kick. And disclaimer, as you're going to see in this play, I was caught off guard by this play. So
I think we all were.
We all were. No one was expecting it because it was, 21-0. Ohio State had just scored, and we were all thinking, okay, this game's done. It's over. It was already over, but it's like 21-0 in the first quarter. Let's just see how Chugunov plays when he comes in. Let's see how the backups play. And then Ryan Day decides to just pull an onside kick.
Right. Little trickeration here.
Little tricks.
There's not much to explain, really. Maryland has a hole in their formation that Ryan Day saw on film, right? We talked about how Ohio State's kickoff coverage team only defends 2/3 of the field from this hash over, essentially, because of where they pin the ball every time. And so Maryland tries to cheat to that, tries to shade their coverage unit, their blockers up front, to where they know the Ohio State coverage team is going, and maybe create a lane for their returner. By leaving this hole, though, Chris Olave can run free up the sideline, and Blake Hobiel's I'm sure this was practiced plenty of times, Blake Hobiel is going to kick the ball just right to him, like he's throwing a pass with his foot. And it was tremendously well executed, both by Olave and by Hobiel on this play. And we'll play it out and talk about some of the broader implications of this.
And as you're going to see, I was expecting it to be a normal kick, but I got back in time to see Olave catch it.
Right.
So
Right up the sideline. You just, in his speed, we've seen Olave make impact on special teams before.
absolutely, like I mentioned, he had that block put against Indiana, but even more so, it's just like having a guy at that caliber and that speed just really can turn the tide of momentum in a game. That's what it did against Indiana. Not that that game was ever in jeopardy, really, but Ohio State did get off to a slower start that game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right. Some of the broader implications of this play, though. So now every team is going to have to prepare for this. Every single team Ohio State plays. Sometimes coaches put things on film for the other team to waste time in practice, or for the other team to have to prepare for it, or for the other team to have to account for it. In the future, when Ohio State kicks off, teams can't shade to the coverage side anymore. They have to have a defender, a blocker back there on Olave in case Ohio State tries this. They may never try it the rest of the season. In fact, I don't think they will. But to have it in your arsenal as a threat means that every other team is going to have to account for this in the future. And there were some other things that Ohio State did Saturday outside this that were done for that exact reason. KJ Hill ran a wide receiver quick that was unsuccessful, basically motioning in from the under center to take a handoff from Fields. Ohio State, I think it was a no-gain play. It was by the goal line. But now everyone's going to have to account for that, right? And that might just add a little more horizontal stretch to a defense so that Dave K-Dobbins has a little more space on a run and can break an extra one off in a game. It's little mind games like this, the little nuts and bolts that force a team to prepare.
absolutely. And now the last play we're going to take a look at is not a kicking play, but it's a punt made by Maryland where, as you're going to see, I thought it was blocked.
Right. I think a lot of the stadium did. This is just a well-designed rush scheme by special teams coordinator Matt Barnes. Four players here are going to slant outside, take some of Maryland's coverage unit with them, and distract these three up backs here for protecting this punter's punting side, essentially, where he's going to punt the ball. One to defend this block. This defender here is going to crash inside, and what that's going to do is it's going to pull the rest of the other blocker, this other interior blocker, with him, and it just opens up a window for Sevyn Banks, who's at linebacker on this play, to run free to the punter. It's just a really good design, somewhat similar to what we saw against Michigan this past season when Olave had that big blocked punt toward the end of the game.
Yeah.
Not quite the same scheme because Olave was looping over the top, but the concept of using the front men as distractions so that the guys playing at the second level here, the guys playing as linebackers on the punt block, get a free running lane, and then you put a fast guy at one of those positions and he sprints there and essentially nearly gets a block from this play. In other cases, may block it. Almost looked like it went through his arms, like he jumped like this. You always want to have your arms close together. You essentially want to catch the ball off the punter's foot. That's the ideal. You want to dive right in front of him when you're blocking a punt, stick your hands out to avoid roughing, but also having your hands together allows for it allows you to block it better. But yeah, that's Ohio State's special teams successes from Saturday.
And when we're looking at like upcoming matchups against Penn State and Michigan, do you think this aggressiveness on special teams and really both on offense and defense too is going to be the X factor that will lead to victories for Ohio State?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'd say X factor. I think they don't need to play aggressive to win, but no, I agree. Aggression has been a part of Ohio State's game plan all year this year. I can only remember one occasion when Ryan Day kind of went conservative. We saw Meyer go conservative a couple different times in the past, right? Kind of shut down games, whether it was the Big Ten championship against Wisconsin with JT when they just held on for a 27-21 win after they got out ahead.
Even his last game against Washington in the Rose Bowl.
Whenever Urban would sometimes get a lead and then run the clock out, play a little bit of trestle ball, for those of you familiar with that, that vernacular. So Day really hasn't done that except against Michigan State when it was bad weather earlier this year, and he kind of ran the ball once they got a lead. He's continued to just keep his foot on teams' throats, whether it's with special teams plays, the attempted punt block. In fact, Ohio State called a couple timeouts just so they could try that punt block.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the half, or it's continuing to throw the ball down the field. Just staying in what has worked throughout the game, I think, is a good thing for a coach, right? Stick with what has worked rather than just bleed out the clock and hold on for a couple score victory. Go ahead and blow the team out of the water. The risk of that is that you give a big play to the other team. But, I mean, it's worked so far for Ohio State.
I mean, when you have a
obviously.
team with so much talent as Ohio State, keeping the intensity up keeps the players, it keeps them aggressive and it keeps them on track to play at 100%.
Right, even the backups play aggressive, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, like, Day said this in post-game press conference. He's like, there's no reason to let up in the first half. I'm paraphrasing, by the way, but he said there's no reason to let up in the first half because you don't know what's going to happen in the second half. You look at Ohio State was up 21-0 against Maryland. 99.9% chance that game's over, but there's always that 0.01% chance that Maryland could have this miraculous comeback. And that's the reason why Ohio State just kept going as fast as possible.
Right.
Exactly. Sorry, words are difficult.
Both had a little trouble there at the end.
No, we're great, okay? Our viewers love us.
All 10 of them.
Listen, to the 10 of you, we love you,
We love
okay?
you.
We appreciate the support. So, but I do think that's all we have time for today, unless there's anything you would like to add.
Well, not really. I think it's just impressive to see Ohio State continuing to dominate teams, continuing to really not take their foot off the gas, and they're not going to have another opportunity.
That's what I was going to try and say, foot off the gas.
Right. There's never. This was the last potential trap game for Ohio State because Rutgers this weekend I don't think is even capable. Ohio State could turn the ball over 5 times, commit 150 yards of penalties, and still win by 3 touchdowns. They could. Rutgers is. So,
Rutgers is bad.
and then after Rutgers, you only have top 15 opponents the rest of the way. So there's no trap game left for Ohio State. What happened in 2017 and 2018 to derail the playoff chances, all of that, that failing against one team that cost them the season, Iowa, Purdue, can't happen anymore. Can't happen anymore.
Yeah.
If they do lose and it costs them big, it's not going to be because it was a trap game.
Yeah, and for context, that's for why you're saying we don't think Rutgers will be a trap game is because Ohio State just beat Maryland 73-14, and Maryland beat Rutgers 48-7.
Right.
I think that says enough. So.
They won't be looking ahead to Penn State based off how their mantra's been this whole year. But even if they were, it's like Rutgers. Even their 2 best players aren't even on the team anymore because they decided to take a redshirt year.
Yeah.
Just a whole lot of shambles going on up there. They're
Yeah.
down there in Piscataway.
Yeah, but stay tuned for our coverage on Rutgers coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
And also check out our other stuff. We'll have a preview show up tomorrow, I believe. And Best Damn Pod in the Land, that's already up, so go check that out if you haven't. It's a great episode. But yeah, thank you very much for watching another episode of the Lantern Film Room. We really enjoy and appreciate the support you guys give us and the views. So thank you very much, and have a great day.